So imagine you're at the checkout screen, you've entered your credit card information, you've double-checked the shipping address, and you are, completely ready to buy.
Right. The moment of truth.
Exactly. But then the confirm button has magically shape-shifted. On the previous page, it was this giant friendly blue rectangle. Now, it's this tiny, unclickable gray ghost icon tucked into the top right corner.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, did I do something wrong? Is the site broken? Am I suddenly trapped in some phishing scam?
Right. Your mind goes to the worst case scenario.
Yeah. But no, you're just the victim of a company operating without a design system.
Which is an incredibly jarring experience. Because it just completely shatters your focus. You go from the momentum of completing a task to, suddenly analyzing the geometry of a user interface.
You're pulled right out of the flow.
Exactly. You're forced to interrogate the tool you're actually using.
It completely derails your train of thought. And that's exactly why we're doing this. Today's deep dive is dedicated to unpacking exactly why that digital chaos happens and, well, more importantly, how the people building these products actually fix it.
It's such a crucial topic.
It really is. And to guide us, we're relying on this really fascinating article from February 2026 by Tobias Reidenhag. He's the head of design at Intunio, which is a UX design and development studio based in Gothenburg, Sweden.
Yeah, and the central theme Reidenhag tackles here is a concept that has essentially colonized the digital product development world recently. I mean, we were looking at the design system, which he argues is basically the only true defense against that exact fragmented user experience you just described.
Okay, let's unpack this because design system is a massive buzzword right now.
Totally. Massive.
You hear it in pitch meetings, you read it in strategy documents, it's on every tech agency's website.
Everywhere.
Right. But Reidenhag sets up this brutal premise right out of the gate. He says, while almost everyone in the industry uses the term, very few people actually understand the mechanical reality of what it means in practice.
Yeah, they like the sound of it, but don't know how it works.
Exactly. So before we even get to the anatomy of this thing, we really need to understand the insidious, creeping problem that makes it so absolutely necessary in the first place.
And what's fascinating here is the assumption people make.
Yeah.
The common assumption is that only these massive global tech giants, companies managing 50 different applications and thousands of engineers, need this level of infrastructure.
Right, like Google or Apple.
Yeah. But Reidenhag points out that this chaos happens to single products, too. I mean, as long as a digital product lives long enough to get incremental feature updates, the seeds of chaos are planted.
Because software is highly dynamic. It's never truly, finished.
Never.
You have multiple people or entirely different teams touching the exact same product over a span of months or even years.
And the psychological mechanism driving this mess is so interesting because the text makes it clear that nobody sets out to build a confusing, inconsistent user experience.
Right. Nobody's twirling their mustache trying to ruin the checkout page.
Exactly. The chaos is just a byproduct of well-intentioned teams trying to solve specific problems in the here and now. So imagine a marketing team, right? They're handed a tight deadline to build a new promotional landing page.
Okay.
While a totally separate product team is simultaneously updating the user dashboard. They each design and code the elements for their specific needs, to the best of their immediate ability, but they are completely isolated from one another.
Let me throw an analogy at this just to see if it captures the dynamic nature of the problem.
I'll go for it.
It's like a team of talented carpenters building a massive house over several years. But everyone brought their own slightly different tape measure, and nobody's actually looking at the master blueprint.
Oh, that's good.
And eventually, nothing lines up. The doors don't fit the frames. And I guess software is even worse because it's not static like a house.
Right, it's constantly shifting.
It's more like a massive global restaurant franchise. If you don't have a centralized, ruthlessly enforced system for exactly how a French fry is made, then every single restaurant manager is going to invent their own recipe based on what potatoes and oil they just happen to have in the kitchen that day.
Yes, in the here and now. Which means a customer buying fries in Tokyo gets a completely different texture and flavor than one in Gothenburg. It just destroys brand reliability.
It totally does.
And Intunio's article breaks down the consequences of this exact fragmentation into two distinct areas. So the most immediate penalty falls on the user. When interfaces feel different from page to page, predictability vanishes.
You are essentially forcing the user to relearn how to navigate your digital environment with every single click.
Exactly.
It creates a massive cognitive load. Instead of instinctively knowing that, say, the search bar is always in the top right, they have to hunt for it on every new screen.
It's exhausting.
You're punishing them for exploring your app.
You really are. And then the secondary impact hits the internal teams building the product. Because when everyone operates in the here and now, isolated from a central truth, you get trapped in these endless loops of repetitive work.
Which has to be so demoralizing.
Oh, it's a huge waste of time. The text notes that the exact same forms, data tables, navigation structures, they end up being designed and coded multiple times from scratch by different teams across the exact same company.
Which leads us to a concept Reidenhag highlights that I really want to dig into. He calls it drift.
Yes,
Yeah.
drift.
He warns that without a system, design and code risk drifting apart. But how does that mechanical separation actually happen in the real world?
Well, technical drift is this slow, silent mutation of a product over time. So a designer might create a beautifully consistent interface in their design software.
Right, it looks perfect on their screen.
Perfect. But the developer who writes the actual code for that interface is often just interpreting a static picture. So they might hard code a slightly different shade of glue or, add 2 extra pixels of padding to a text box.
Just minor little tweaks.
Right. But over months of updates, bug fixes, new features, the coded reality of the live product and the designed ideal in the software drift further and further away from each other. They literally become 2 entirely different truths.
And then those teams get bogged down in endless meetings, debating the exact pixel spacing between a headline and a paragraph over and over again for every new feature they launch.
It's a nightmare for efficiency. And it obviously degrades the user experience.
So the design system steps in as the operational tool to halt that drift. But Reidenhag starts his explanation of what a design system actually is by busting a few major industry myths.
He does, because people tend to severely underestimate what a design system actually is.
What do they think it is?
Well, they often assume it's just a UI library or a single file full of icons or maybe like a loose PDF of brand guidelines dictating logo usage.
Right, like a branding kit.
Exactly. But the author argues it is much more robust than that. It is a comprehensive operational tool designed to enforce order, consistency, and reusability at a systemic level.
Okay, let me stop you right there and play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
When I hear terms like enforce order, standardize reusability, my mind immediately goes to a digital assembly line.
I can see why.
Because if I'm a designer, my entire professional identity is rooted in crafting unique, tailored experiences. If this operational tool hands me a box of pre-made, standardized Lego bricks, the exact colors, the exact buttons, the exact drop-down menus, I'm no longer an architect.
You're just an assembler on a factory floor.
Exactly. Doesn't this completely kill human creativity?
So that is the most potent and probably the most common pushback you hear in the industry. And the Intunio text addresses it head on.
Okay, how do they justify it?
Well, if your definition of creativity is reinventing the shape and color of a submit button every Tuesday, then yes, it kills that specific type of creativity.
Yeah, no.
But the author argues that a design system does not replace design work, it actually elevates it. By standardizing all those tedious, repetitive micro-elements, you are actually freed from the factory line.
Oh, I see. So you're saying the creativity moves up the chain.
Exactly.
Instead of expressing yourself through the border radius of a button, you express yourself through how seamlessly a user flows from one task to another.
Yes, exactly.
You become a behavioral architect, not just a digital painter.
That captures the essence perfectly. You no longer spend 3 hours debating whether a warning label should be light red or dark red. The system has already answered that.
Right.
So you spend those 3 hours thinking about user psychology and high-level architectural problems. And to understand how it achieves this, the text outlines 5 specific components that make up a true system.
And they build on each other organically, right? Let's walk through how those pieces actually interact, because it clearly isn't just a random pile of assets.
No, not at all. It starts with the raw atoms, the visual basics. This layer defines your exact color palettes, your typography rules, your spacing grids.
But a raw hex code for a color is fundamentally useless on its own until it's applied to something functional.
Right, which naturally feeds into the next layer, the UI components. This is where those raw visual atoms are baked into usable, interactive pieces.
Like the text boxes where you type your email, the drop-down menus, the toggle switches.
Exactly. We are moving from raw materials to actual bricks.
Okay, but you can't just throw a pile of standardized bricks at a team and expect them to build a functional cathedral.
No, you can't. And that's why the interaction of those bricks is governed by the third element, which is design patterns. These are pre-solved answers for recurring user experience problems.
Wait, how does a pattern differ from a component in practice? I think people might get those confused.
It's a great question. So a component is the button itself. A pattern is the entire sequence.
Ah, okay.
For example, if a user needs to fill out a complex, multi-step checkout form involving shipping, billing, and confirmation, the design pattern dictates exactly how that entire sequence flows.
So it ensures the logic behaves the exact same way across the entire product ecosystem, regardless of which team built that specific page.
Exactly. But there's a massive gap here.
Oh, what's the gap?
If I'm a newly hired developer, how do I know when to use a specific pattern or which component fits which scenario?
Right. Reidenhag emphasizes documentation as a core pillar, and I imagine this is the breaking point for most companies.
It absolutely is.
Because a highly complex system without a user manual is just a junk drawer of buttons.
Yes. Documentation is the nervous system that connects everything else. It explains the how and the when.
Right.
It explicitly tells a team, yes, we have a solid red warning button, but you are only permitted to use it when the user is about to permanently delete their account. Do not use it for a simple password error.
It governs the logic.
Exactly. Which brings us to the final and, frankly, most crucial mechanism of the whole system code components.
Because a design system isn't just a collection of pretty pictures drawn by a designer. It includes the actual implemented code that perfectly matches those designs.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the magic really happens.
Let's dig into the how of that, because this feels like the true aha moment of Reidenhag's piece. How does a system actually bridge the gap between a designer's screen and the live code?
Well, it completely defeats the drift we discussed earlier by acting as a shared API, basically a direct communication bridge between human designers and human developers.
Okay, how does that work technically?
It often works through a mechanism called design tokens. So instead of a developer manually hard-coding the hex value for the color blue into every single button across a massive app.
Which sounds awful.
Right. Instead of doing that, they write code that references a variable, a token called, say, primary action color.
And the central design system dictates what that token actually looks like.
Yes, exactly.
So if the executive team decides the brand needs a refresh, and the designers change that primary action color token from blue to green in their central file.
That change cascades down through the code automatically.
Oh, wow.
Every single button across the entire live application updates to green instantly. The developer does not have to hunt down and rewrite thousands of lines of code.
That's incredible. The designer and the developer are finally linked by the exact same centralized language.
Yes, permanently linked.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We've mapped out the mechanics. We know how the tokens, components, and patterns act as this massive communication bridge. But building this infrastructure requires a staggering amount of time, discipline, and capital.
It's a huge investment.
So why do organizations commit to this? The Intunio article breaks the payoff down into 3 macro levels of impact.
Right. The most immediate payoff happens at the user level. The ultimate goal of standardizing those buttons and patterns is to breed user trust through recognition.
Recognition. Meaning, I don't have to expend mental energy trying to decipher your interface because I instantly recognize the patterns from the last page I visited or even from other apps I use daily.
Exactly. When the interface behaves exactly as expected, the user's cognitive load plummets.
They stop thinking about the digital tool they are manipulating.
Right. And they pour all their mental capacity into their actual goal, whether that is booking a complex international flight or analyzing a massive financial spreadsheet. The interface effectively becomes invisible.
An invisible interface.
Right.
That is a phenomenal metric for design success.
It really is.
So that covers the user. But there's an internal payoff, too, hitting the team dynamics. We touched on this with the idea of ending repetitive loops, but it goes deeper than just saving time, doesn't it?
It does. It fundamentally changes how technical teams collaborate. It eliminates the massive friction of siloed work. Well, when a designer tells a developer, hey, we need a primary action module here, they aren't speaking in abstracts anymore. The developer knows exactly what that module looks like, how it behaves, and where the pre-written, thoroughly tested code for it
Mm.
lives in their repository.
It completely destroys the double work that normally plagues software development cycles,
Way?
which naturally zooms us out to the macro level, the organizational scale.
Right.
Let's say a company has a wildly successful desktop application and they suddenly need to scale it down into a mobile app. Or perhaps they just acquired a smaller competitor and need to fold that new software into their existing brand ecosystem.
Attempting those massive macro leaps without a design system is just an absolute nightmare.
You're essentially rebuilding from the ground up, guessing at how things should look and feel on a new platform.
Exactly.
Right.
But with a centralized system, you have a scalable, stable foundation. You apply your existing design tokens and patterns to the new platform, and it instantly looks, feels, and behaves like part of the family.
It acts as an insurance policy for aggressive business growth. You can scale rapidly without breaking the core identity of the product.
And this ties deeply into Intunio's overarching philosophy. Because they are a studio working across a multitude of industries, they have a really unique vantage point.
Right, they see what actually works in the wild.
Yeah, they see which companies thrive with these systems and which ones just build a massive, expensive library of buttons that nobody actually uses.
And what's their secret?
Their definitive takeaway is that the success of a design system hinges entirely on company culture. The teams that extract the absolute most value treat consistency as a shared responsibility.
A shared responsibility. That implies it isn't just a strict mandate handed down from a dictatorial design director on high.
Exactly. If a design system is treated as a static rulebook policed by a few executives, it will fail.
People will just ignore it.
Right. Shared responsibility means the designers, the developers, and the product managers all view the system as a living, breathing ecosystem.
So if a developer is building a new feature and realizes the existing components don't solve the user's problem,
They don't just hack together a custom solution in the dark. They propose an update to the central system. They're all collectively responsible for maintaining it, questioning it, and evolving it.
So what does this all mean? If we synthesize Reidenhag's entire argument, a design system is essentially a mechanism to stop smart people from having dumb arguments.
That's a great way to put it.
You stop wasting endless hours debating the hex code of a drop shadow or the exact pixel padding of a text box. You elevate the entire organization's baseline.
You move away from fixing the digital plumbing, and you graduate to actually designing the architecture of the human experience.
At its core, that is the most empowering takeaway for you listening right now. A design system is just a ruthlessly efficient tool to stop reinventing the wheel.
Yes, absolutely.
It takes all the creeping chaos of well-intentioned teams solving isolated problems in the here and now and replaces it with long-term stability. It provides the central blueprint so that no matter how massive your digital house becomes, every single door fits perfectly into its frame.
This raises an important question, though.
Oh.
Yeah. If we extrapolate Intunio's insights into the future, we arrive at a fascinating crossroads. We've established that design systems free up teams to focus on high-level, complex user problems instead of basic UI questions, right?
Right.
But what happens when these systems become completely comprehensive? If design systems evolve to the point where they are perfectly documented, entirely automated, and governed completely by code, what is the future role of a digital designer?
Oh, wow. That is a heavy question.
If every visual building block is already perfectly standardized and available on demand, will the design of the future be entirely about human psychology and behavioral science? Will the designers of tomorrow be completely detached from the physical act of drawing interfaces?
The idea that mastering digital design might eventually mean never having to actually draw a button ever again.
Exactly.
That is a profound paradigm shift. And I highly encourage you to take that provocative thought with you into your next project, your next strategy meeting, or, the next time you find yourself entirely paralyzed at a checkout screen because the navigation menu decided to play hide and seek. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of the digital world, and we will catch you next time.